Today we're going to talk about Nintendo as an investment. Do I think that this is a good investment? Is there a short-term play opportunity here? We're going to talk about it all, but of course I want to cover some really cool things about Nintendo. So first off, I think it's important to share that this stock, which the ticker symbol is NTDOY, it's an ADR, which is an American Depository Receipt, which represents shares of non-US based companies. Now, banks issue ADRs to facilitate trading on U.S. exchanges. Some banks require investors to pay periodic service fees, typically 1 penny to 3 pennies per share. So something you want to consider and research if you want to invest in Nintendo. Let's go through some history of some of their products and consoles and things. So really, I think they kicked it off in 1989 with the Game Boy. And there were some iterations after this, like Game Boy Color, so on and so forth. I had one. Then in 1996, 1997, they came out with Nintendo 64. This was a big hit, another big hit, shall I say, and a lot of my friends had this. I did not. I had the PlayStation 1, but definitely played a lot of Nintendo 64, going over to my friend's house and things like that. Then in 2001, they came out with GameCube. This one I wasn't too familiar with, and I don't think it was as popular as the Game Boy and Nintendo 64, but it was another big release of theirs. Then they had the Nintendo DS in 2004, and then they had the introduction of the Wii in 2006. Following that, there's a big gap, and they came out with the very popular Nintendo Switch in 2017. In fact, if we look at the 10 best-selling consoles of all time here, you'll see at the very top is the Sony PlayStation 2, but then we have the Nintendo DS, the Nintendo Switch, the Nintendo Game Boy. We have the Nintendo Game Boy Color, then the Sony PlayStation 4, then the Sony PlayStation, then the Nintendo Wii, then the Sony PlayStation 3, then Microsoft Xbox 360, and then the Sony PlayStation Portable. So they hold a lot of the top 10 best-selling consoles of all time. That is impressive. Now, if we look at their stock chart over the last, decade or two, we'll see here there's two big rises in their stock chart I want to point out. First, which happened in 2006, which is when they released the Wii. The Wii was extremely popular, and if you're around at that time, you know that a lot of people bought the Wii. You go over to a friend's or family's house, and they'd have that as an option to play with any type of gathering. So that led to some massive success, but then the stock dropped off after that, and in 2018, it went up again. Now, what was that from? The Nintendo Switch. That Switch was very popular and has been a runway of success since releasing 8 years ago, as shown in the stock chart. But if history repeats itself, this stock is possibly poised for another dip. Why? Well, Nintendo is going to release the Switch successor, which will cause many people to hold off buying the current Switch, as the next one is highly anticipated, as reflected already with the stock hovering between a 3 to 5% gain year to date. That's kind of a struggle in a way when it comes to stocks, especially those that you want to invest in, and it will be that way until they release the next Switch. I know some gamers in my life, and they have been talking about their excitement for the next Switch. So of course they're not going to put more money into the current one. They want to buy the next one. So this will cause the sales to decrease in Nintendo in the short term, but then likely to shoot up following the release of the next Switch. Again, apparently it'll be in March of 2025 when they will announce this. So the original Switch has sold more than 143 million units, besting rival products from Microsoft, which is Xbox, and Sony, which is PlayStation. The Switch surpassed the 102 million units of Nintendo's own Wii. So the Switch is very popular, making it the third best-selling video game console ever. And that's what we saw in that chart that I just showed a little bit ago. So Nintendo is over 100 years old. Yes, you heard that right. And it originally started as a trading card game company, but Nintendo started its humble gaming beginnings in the 1980s. But now with Xbox and PlayStation in the game, console makers are increasingly competing with each other on better and better graphics driven by powerful hardware. And PlayStation is in their 5th iteration and Xbox is in their 4th iteration. Now, Xbox and PlayStation typically produce realistic and violent titles aimed at teenagers and young adults. Nintendo, however, focuses on making fun games that appeal to a broader audience, including people that are not typically gamers, like myself. I'm not a gamer, but I want a Switch. After playing with the Switch when I went on vacation recently with my cousins, we were all able to have fun, and I think everyone in that room that did not own a Switch now wants one, or maybe they bought one. I'd have to check in with my cousins. But that vacation was a lot of fun, and the downtime we got to play the Switch. It just made it a great time. Now, the Wii and Switch offer games that allow families and friends to play together in casual settings, just like I mentioned, and as a result, the Switch does not need as powerful of hardware as its rivals, as its graphics look like it could have been published 15 years ago. But think of the cost savings in that for a second, and I will show you some things here in a minute which show the benefits of that. So what the Switch lacks in power, it makes up for in creative form factors, aka providing users that dopamine hit. The success of Mario has nothing to do with the fact that he's now a higher pixelated model. It has everything to do with the games being centered around the same gameplay mechanics that evolve over time and become more and more complex. Other companies throw technology as their solution, but that's viewed as the easy way out. Another cool thing with the Switch is it doubles as a portable console with detachable mini controllers, so you can hand one to everyone in the room, or put it back on the Switch and play it right in front of you, not to mention connect it to the TV. More on that in a second. So now you might be thinking about competition from smartphone mobile gaming. Mobile gaming is now the largest gaming segment, commanding about half of the $184 billion market by sales last year, compared to 28% for consoles. Luckily, there's plenty of gaming revenue to go around as console gaming continues to grow. So Nintendo Switch has unique positioning between a console and a mobile gaming device, the best of both worlds. Yes, it's not truly a mobile device, but it's small enough that you can consider it a mobile gaming device. So Nintendo has a large user base to leverage here and has been a money-making machine as of lately. Nintendo rakes in more than $10 billion in revenue annually for the past several years, and its profits have grown sharply at about $3.3 billion as of March of 2024. For comparison, if you look here, Sony's gaming division generated $29.1 billion of revenue and its operating profit of $2 billion. Nintendo posted $11.4 billion of revenue and $3.6 billion of operating profit. So Sony generated much more revenue, but it was still less profitable than Nintendo. That is very interesting to see. Now, Microsoft does not disclose operating profit, so that would be nice to know, but it probably is less than Nintendo. Now, Microsoft is betting on its future growth of subscription services with its Game Pass, but that is still newer and not quite proven to be a success or not. However, Microsoft has deep pockets, as shown by its $69 billion Activision acquisition, to stay in the game despite hurdles that may come its way. Smartphones are a competitor to consoles and the Switch, but gaming on the big screen is something I believe is here to stay. You can only take so much looking at a small screen and would rather experience the fun, the action on a big screen TV. I know I would, and I guarantee I can bet that you do too. Now, aside from smartphones, Nintendo does have fierce competition with Microsoft and Sony, but the Switch has been holding up excellent these last 8 years, and this new release should prove to continue to be a competitive gaming offering and keep Nintendo on a successful path. In fact, Nintendo recently said that they want to try not only to put one gaming system in every home, but several in every home, or even one for every person. Now, that last one might be a little bit of a stretch, but I do think that they can pretty much be in every home and maybe put several in every home. Now, with iconic characters and games like Mario, Pikachu, and Zelda, not to mention Super Nintendo World at Universal Studios Japan, keeping the spark alive in a different arena, this company does have staying power. The question is, should you invest in it? I would say if you want to play the next Switch release and try to buy in before they announce the date, then you can probably make some good money in the years following. But for me, I will not be playing this timing game nor investing in this company for the long term, as the competition is just too fierce and this company's market share is going to be tested and in a constant battle. With that said, though, I do think its odds are in the investor's favor if you do decide to make this a long-term hold. Nintendo offers accessible fun for everyone. Anyone can be a gamer with Nintendo. And I didn't mention this, but my favorite game is Mario Kart. I'd like to know yours too. But its games are colorful, easier and more convenient to learn than an Xbox or PlayStation game in general, which means it has a broader market appeal. That equates to more units being sold. As I mentioned earlier with the sales figures, Nintendo holds the same brand value and expectations from the audience, but still manages to surprise them on top of that. That's something that's hard to do. So I want to invest in companies with dominant market share, shall I say a wide moat, that competitive advantage that keeps others far behind. That is just not the case here. There's too much risk with these other competitors having deep pockets and popular gaming options themselves, but Nintendo does have something unique, and that is a legitimate thesis you could use to invest in Nintendo. That is just all up to you. So would you invest in Nintendo and play this next big Switch release as an investment strategy, being that historically the stock pops afterwards, or do you think it's too much of a risk like myself due to the competition? For me, I will stick to playing Nintendo games, not the investing games. It's just a risk that I don't think is worth it. So now let's look at my portfolio and its performance. You will see here it's kind of shot up a little bit. It was below 20%. Now it's nearing 24%. We've had some good news in the market concerning the economy and people expecting the rates to be cut. So that adds some positive. And with this, you will see here, I do hold Microsoft. It's at 76% in the green and makes up 15% of my portfolio. This is my gaming exposure. This is my pick, and I do hold a decent amount of this stock, so I will keep that as my gaming exposure because there's a lot of other things to fall back on with Microsoft should they see struggles in their gaming division. So let me know if you invest or want to invest in Nintendo, or choose a different stock to get that gaming exposure, because I do think gaming has a bright future and I do want a piece of it. So it's through Microsoft, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. And with that said, that's all I have for today, and we'll see you soon on Mark Arnold's Finance.